On Grid tonight, Trackhouse Racing and Daniel Suárez are parting ways at the end of the year. Where does Suárez go in 2026 and who could potentially replace him in the number 99 Chevrolet? Sky in Italy reports that talks have intensified between Max Verstappen and Mercedes. Could the four-time Formula One world champion really be on the way to the Silver Arrows? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Cubby Lambert, and with me are Joshua Birch from JV Motorsports. I'm filling in for Matt White, Tanner Smith from Pitbox Rest. Happy to have you on here, Tanner, on such short notice, and definitely wishing Matt White well as he continues to get better from whatever cold that he's dealing with, and hope to have him back on the show next week. And we definitely encourage everyone to interact with us in the chat, support us through Super Chat, and visit gridnetworktv.com for our latest content. Now here's Josh with our top story this evening. Got to talk a lot about silly season tonight.
Yeah, if anybody was tuning in for tonight to talk about racing, I'm afraid it's not the show we've got for you. It's very much all about contracts this evening, as silly season has very much kicked off as well. Matt's chosen, I think, an interesting one to miss. But Tanner, nice to have you here, my friend, and nice to have you talking first off with the big news that broke yesterday. And I got this news when I was covering a tennis match at Wimbledon, to which my eyes immediately went out on stalks, because within the last year, we've been covering the driver dilemma, Trackhouse Racing, and the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, 1 year ago at this point, Trackhouse had 5 drivers under contract, and that was Ross Chastain, Daniel Suárez, Zane Smith, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Connor Zilic. About 11 months ago, the first domino fell when Trackhouse decided to drop Smith as a development driver and start up a third Cup Series team for Shane Van Gisbergen in 2025, who was chosen for the seat over Smith. Then, Trackhouse was able to loan Zilic to JR Motorsports for the entire 2025 Xfinity Series season. Now, entering this year, Zilic was one of the most hyped young prospects in NASCAR, as many believed he's a generational talent who will be a superstar someday in the Cup Series. Zilic won his Xfinity Series debut last year at Watkins Glen. Then he's picked up a pair of wins this year at COTA and Pocono, and he's currently riding a hot streak of 5 consecutive top 5 finishes since he missed Texas due to a back injury. Now, knowing how the new charter agreement only allows teams to purchase no more than 3 charters, minus the grandfathered charters for Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing, one Trackhouse driver is likely to be the odd man out for the 2025 season. Now, while Zilic's upside being extremely high and weighing the risk of losing him to a rival team if he doesn't get promoted to Cup in 2026, Trackhouse was entering the summer with some tough decisions to make. Now, Chastain, the ultimate team leader, was obviously safe and in no danger of losing his ride. While SVG has struggled on the ovals, he's started lately to improve, and he's earned his spot in the playoffs thanks to a dominant win in Mexico City. Now, the only Trackhouse driver yet to clinch a playoff berth is Suárez, now who unfortunately is the driver getting the boot at the end of the 2025 season. Yesterday afternoon, it was announced that Trackhouse and Suárez mutually agreed to part ways, potentially opening the number 99 Chevrolet for Zilic if the team decides to promote him. Now, when Justin Marks founded Trackhouse, Suárez was the first driver he signed, and he's been with the team since 2021. During his time at Trackhouse, Suárez made the playoffs twice and won 2 races at Sonoma and Atlanta. The statement on your screen as well, as I'm going to have to go into full screen to read that as well, says, Trackhouse Racing and Daniel Suárez agreed to part ways at the conclusion of the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season. The role Daniel has played in the Trackhouse Origins first 5 years will remain a valued part of the company's history forever. His commitment, work ethic, and dedication to the effort is one of the most impressive things I personally have seen in my career. We will forever be thankful and honored that Daniel chose to spend many incredible years with us. We are proud of his wins, his success, the growth of his brand, and his emergence as a valuable athlete in America's greatest motorsport. But most of all, I'm proud of him as a friend. I'm truly excited to see what awaits him in the next chapter of his amazing career. We are grateful for the professionalism, effort, and heart he's brought to our organisation. That's Justin Marks. Daniel Suárez says, I've had some of the best years of my Cup Series career at Trackhouse. We had a great success as a team, and I gained some incredible friends. We took a team nobody had even heard of in 2021, and in just a couple of years, we were winning races and running up front on a weekly basis. Just like the seasons in a year, sometimes things change, and we will have mutually agreed to each go our own direction. I wish Trackhouse nothing but the best. This number 99 team will always be special to me. And like I always say, the best is ahead. Missed a chance to have a song there with the best is yet to come as well. But Tanner's with me as well. Hello, my friend. Entering this weekend's race in Chicago, he's 29th in the points. Did it almost seem inevitable that Daniel Suárez would be the driver that Trackhouse let go? And is Connor Zilic ready to be a full-time Cup driver, assuming, of course, that he's the driver who gets the role next year?
Gotcha. So let's tackle the first part of this. Suárez being the driver to be let go here. Obviously, Ross Chastain was never in threat, especially with his expansive Busch sponsorship. I think that Suárez opened himself up for vulnerability when last year he signed a 1-year extension, which did not include an extension to go into 2026. So he continued to sign 1-year deal after 1-year deal after 1-year deal. At a certain point, you kind of run out of those if you don't end up getting more than one. So I feel that with Suárez, I felt that he showed a lot of pace at certain points during the year. He was running top 10 at Phoenix prior to Josh Berry and Catherine Legg making contact and taking him out of the event without, any cause of his own. He was also running well at COTA earlier this year, where he unfortunately spun himself out, and then in the resulting melee took out Zilic as well in the same accident. And I felt that if SVG also didn't get a win this year, it would open them both up to being vulnerable for that spot, especially SVG, who shares so many sponsorships with Zilic. It almost felt like it could be one of those things where they take up too much of the same value with those companies that they wouldn't want two full-time Cup drivers in their lineup, which is what made Suárez valuable, in my opinion, as far as sponsorship is concerned. He brought a lot of his own sponsorship with Freeway. He's a Coca-Cola Racing family driver. He's obviously linked up with Carlos Slim and his myriad of companies. But with SVG winning at Mexico City and Suárez being nowhere to be found in the points battle, it did kind of make the decision at this point pretty easy for Trackhouse for 2026 to move on from their, flagship driver that drove their original car and helped propel the team forward to what they are today. Now, as far as Connor Zilic is concerned and what his Cup Series prospects look like, I think that he is mostly ready to be a full-time driver. But what I worry about more so is Trackhouse Racing really ready to develop a prospect and move them up to the Cup Series and develop them from there? I feel like if he's taking over the 99 team as currently constructed, I feel like Daniel Suárez has proven when you surround him with a great team, he can do very great things. Obviously, you look back at 2022, and granted, there's some circumstantial evidence there to suggest that because they were in a Chevy during the first year of the next-gen era and they were aligned with RCR, that they probably had a bit of a leg up in 2022 to allow both of their drivers to excel past what they're actually capable of. But at the same time, Daniel Suárez is a top 10 points finisher at one point in his career in the Cup Series, is a 2-time race winner, an Xfinity Series champion, and clearly still has what it takes to win at this level of the sport. And it just seemed like the 99 team wasn't really able to keep up with him, especially in these last few years. And if I'm Connor Zilic, I would be a little bit hesitant to take on that team as is. I just feel like there are so many racetracks where the 99 car is not fast for reasons outside of the driver. Like, they have never shown any speed at Bristol, for instance. pretty much every time they go there, it seems that Suarez's car is like the rear of it is like dribbling like a basketball going into each corner, which is not preferable and not comfortable for the driver. Something that Ross Chastain pointed out earlier this year after the Texas race, that Trackhouse racing has struggled as a whole to provide very comfortable race cars for their drivers. So I am a little bit hesitant about Trackhouse and their ability to, raise a prospect up and get them ready for Cup. But at the same time, Connor Zilisch has shown nothing but green lights as a prospect. You put him in anything and he has gone fast in it. So I think that as far as the 3 Trackhouse drivers are concerned, Suarez was easily the most vulnerable. I wouldn't say it felt inevitable, but after Mexico, it certainly started to give that impression. And as far as Zilisch, I have no questions about him. My questions mostly reside with Trackhouse.
Yeah, and Trackhouse also have this habit going on in MotoGP at the moment as well with their riders, and a few of them injured and replacing them with riders who arguably are not the best caliber for a team that did have a front row start last year in Argentina as well. So it's a problem, it seems, across the board. Adam's with us in the chat says, I think that Connor Zilisch goes in the number 99 in 2026, wishing Daniel Suarez the best next year. Likelihood I could see him going into Xfinity just to drop back down again after an interesting Mexico City race he had where he went back to front. Or does he get the 88 and SVG gets the 99? Would SVG work in the 99?
I think that it would probably line up more that they'll just get rid of the 99 and table that number and move Zilisch up into the 87, which is what he has been driving when he makes his Cup starts this year. But there is like a whole underwater thing with NASCAR and buying numbers from other teams. So, I mean, I don't know how valuable the 99 as a number is to the rest of the race teams in the garage. So it'll be a fun little subplot to watch in all this, I feel like, to see who ends up with what number at Trackhouse next year. But I think one thing's clear, Ross Chastain will be driving the 1 car next year.
Well, there's another thing thrown about this as well, with the rumours that we've been hearing with everything with Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s squad and how they ran the 8, of course, this year. Would they also want the 88 back to run in their team as well? Of course, the second number for Junior. And that's currently with Trackhouse. So if Trackhouse goes just 87 and 99 and the 88 goes back to Junior, that could be an option as well that we've seen on the board if they want to enter full time after they did a stunning entry earlier on this season as well in their one-off cup race. Bristol 24 seems like the slump really for Suarez, and this year just not there besides Las Vegas. I think Vegas is the only time Suarez has been. I think we've all been at the screen going, oh, he's had a good day today, isn't it? But speaking of Suarez, because a few hours after the news came out, he did go on Sirius XM NASCAR radio to discuss the situation. He revealed that he's known for a while that Trackhouse wasn't bringing him back in 2026 and didn't want to think about this as a sad moment, but just the beginning of a new chapter for him and his career. Now, Suarez is a driver who has dealt with lots of change in his Cup Series career, from getting moved up unexpectedly to the top level of NASCAR in 2017 after Carl Edwards announced a shock retirement. Joe Gibbs Racing only kept him for 2 years before replacing him with Martin Truex Jr. Then he only lasted a single year at Stewart-Haas Racing until he was let go for Cole Custer. And to make matters worse, this wasn't announced until the season final race weekend, leaving Suarez with little time to find a ride. He spent a single year with the Gant Brothers Racing in 2020 in what was a super last-minute full-time deal before joining Trackhouse at the start of 2021, and he'll end his tenure there after 5 years together, most stability he's ever had in the Cup Series as well. Now, when Suarez first joined Trackhouse, Pitbull was a part of the ownership group before he left in the days leading up to the Daytona 500 earlier on this year. Remember, Pitbull was still performing at the Daytona 500. Everyone said how awkward that was as well. Now, he ended his business partnership with Justin Marks right before the biggest race of the season in NASCAR as well. Now, Pitbull was proud of his heritage, promoting Latin culture and having a Mexican driver representing his team. He was a big believer in Suarez. So, Tanner, do you think that Pitbull's influence beforehand has likely helped Suarez last longer than expected at Trackhouse? And could Pitbull have sort of shifted things now that he's left the team, knowing, of course, how unlikely it was for Trackhouse to renew Suarez's contract going for 2026?
I think it was a number of things. I kind of mentioned Suarez does bring a significant amount of funding on his own. I think that has kind of kept him in the Cup Series for longer than some would probably deem necessary. But I think that Atlanta win last year actually is what kept him in that ride longer. If I remember correctly, after 2022, I believe he signed a 2-year extension, which extended him through 2024. And then he went out and won the second race of the season in dramatic fashion at Atlanta in 2024. And I think that alone earned him that contract extension that came into this season and ends at the end of this year. So I think that winning at good times certainly helped. I also think that Trackhouse acquiring a third charter helped buy him another little bit of time. But at the end of the day, I think that Suarez's win at Atlanta probably kept him more so on the team, as well as his performance in 22 and 23. While he did not make the playoffs in 2023, he was the first driver in points outside of the playoffs, which is a very important spot to be in if you can't be in the playoffs, because it shows that you were probably capable of being in there and doing something, but you just didn't have the fortune go your way in the regular season. As for the second part of this question, I think that Suarez's lack of job security definitely helped push Pitbull out the door. I think that partnership with Pitbull and Trackhouse was mostly determined by them, embracing Suarez and, touting him as one of their flagship drivers. And I feel that after Pitbull's departure, I think that made it pretty clear what Trackhouse's future plans were. And maybe this is a hot take, but I feel that had Suarez won at Las Vegas earlier this year, that would not have mattered at this point. I think that he was going to be out of a ride regardless. So, in a lot of ways, I just think that more often than not with this kind of a situation, there was too many factors at play to just say that there's one thing that pointed to Suarez staying or, leaving sooner than he actually did. But I think that, among other things, Zane Smith's lack of performance in the first half of last year certainly sticks out, and probably why he didn't end up getting that third chartered ride, while SVG had a very solid Xfinity Series season and showed promise in his Cup starts. Not only that, he also brought an exceptional amount of funding. So, yeah, I feel that Suarez kind of got to keep staying in the 99 because of circumstances and him getting wins at the right time.
Reminds me a bit of Joey Logano as well, with wins at the right time as well. When you do look at potential rides available for the 2026 season, there aren't many good ones, as you've mentioned as well, for grabs in the Cup Series. Legacy Motor Club team owner Jimmy Johnson recently went on the record to state his intentions of expanding to a 3-car team next season, as Legacy MC has stepped up in performance this season. Now, besides that, outside of any major silly season bombshells, the majority of the Cup Series field is under contract for next year. If there aren't any good competitive options staying in the Cup Series, Suarez may have to consider dropping down to the Xfinity or Truck Series. He's the 2016 Xfinity Series champion and won his home race in Mexico City a few weeks ago with JR Motorsports. So basically, should Suarez seriously consider dropping down to Xfinity or even to Trucks and sign with a top team where he can compete for championships and wins? Or adjacent to that, does he sign for a low-end Cup Series team until he can move back up the ranks?
I think that Daniel Suarez is in a very interesting spot. The first thing I want to quash is that Daniel Suárez is very obviously a Cup caliber driver. We're talking about a guy, as I explained earlier, is a 2-time Cup winner as recently as last year. He has made the round of 12 twice, which is to say that he has advanced past the first round both times that he has been in the postseason, and has shown that he can advance if, his car stays together, unlike it did at the Roval in 2022. So I think that given Suárez's resume, you compare it to some of the other drivers in the Cup Series field, I definitely feel like he has a right to be in the Cup Series based on his performance in the past. And granted, his stats aren't exactly glowing this year, but I think that circumstances have kind of gotten in his way in a number of instances, such as Atlanta this past week, where he was an unfortunate bystander in a much larger crash. As far as staying in the Cup Series, yes, his options are rather limited. The rides that I looked at in particular were the second Colleague car, where Ty Dillon currently holds it. There's kind of an old saying in NASCAR social media circles that once Ty Dillon leaves the ride, it gets better. And I do think that Daniel Suárez would be an infinite improvement over Ty Dillon if Suárez elects to stay in the Cup Series. But what I think is all the more likely is that he lands with Junior Motorsports and an effective ride swap with Connor Zilisch. I think that if Dale Jr. is serious about getting into the Cup Series, which I think he is, it would benefit him to have a guy in his car that has already driven in the Cup Series a number of times. And I feel like for the first year or so, Suárez could just stay in Xfinity and then do a lot of part-time starts for the Cup Series with what is effectively a fifth Hendrick car for Junior Motorsports. And the way that they'll be able to pull that off is, as I mentioned, Suárez has a lot of funding at his disposal, and having a driver with all this funding that they bring on their own could allow Junior to pull off more Cup starts with an unchartered car and kind of actually build a team for Cup that's capable of running. And once a charter becomes available at a price that Dale Jr. is willing to pay, they can move up with Suárez and, get the ball rolling again and get it up to Cup. And granted, I think that that's a pretty optimistic viewpoint, but at the same time, I think that Suárez would do very well in the Xfinity Series. I mean, we're talking about a guy that hasn't really driven in an Xfinity Series car much since that title-winning campaign in 2016. And to go out there in a backup car at Mexico City, where he hadn't really raced an Xfinity car before, and to go out there and win in exceptional fashion, shows that the guy is very clearly talented and able to wheel around an Xfinity Series car to competitive heights. So I think that with Justin Allgaier, kind of on the way out in his career, just because of his age, not because he's, doing any poor, not that he's logging any poor performances in by any stretch, but he did allude to possibly a retirement looming in the future in his recent interview with Kenny Wallace. So I feel that at JRM, Daniel Suárez would fill an exceptionally crucial need for that team to have a bit of a, flagship driver that can bring in a lot of funding, and you wouldn't really have to worry about how he's going to come in every day. I mean, obviously Trackhouse was very complimentary of Suárez and his work ethic, so I have no doubts that that would be a great fit for both sides. And if Junior does have Cup aspirations, I think Suárez would be a very fitting option to help them, build a team and make it back up to Cup with enough funding to make a whole 36 race campaign.
I really hope to see that happen, to be fair. It's a nice sort of ring, I thought, when we saw Junior into the Cup as well earlier on this season. And I think as well, it would make sense for Suárez to go there as well. And he did so well at Mexico City in the Xfinity. I think everybody, I agree with you, Tanner, as well, that it shows exactly how much talent he has and why he shouldn't be underestimated, I think is the key word to say there as well. Tan, I want to thank you very much for hopping on the show as well tonight as well. It's an absolute pleasure to have you and to fill in so last second as well. What are you thinking going into Chicago this weekend? Are we in for a good weekend or a wet weekend, called off again? Or will we actually make it to the checker flag this time?
Well, let's look at the old forecast. I mean, listen, I have enjoyed the last two Chicago races, even though they have been marred by weather and just nothing but goofy things happening here and there. Last year, they tried to race through a deluge, and thankfully they stopped before they went any further because the best car of the event got wiped out because it was literally a swamp on the road. So, I actually did recently visit Chicago and stayed in the Congress Plaza Hotel. So I actually got to see the track, so to speak, less than a month ago. And I think that the event is such a critical thing for NASCAR. I love that they have finally dipped their toes into the street racing waters. And I think that the Chicago course has provided exceptionally strong racing. But at the same time, we haven't really gotten to see any of it during a natural dry condition. And unfortunately, for the third consecutive year, it's looking like we're going to have some rain. So let's hope like hope is the only thing we have to hold on to, that we are going to have a sunny, at minimum, Chicago day on Sunday, and we can see these guys really show what they're worth on the street circuit in dry conditions. I think that's what everybody wants to see, and I want everybody to be able to go to their concert after the fact that they paid for with their ticket. So I think that if I had to make an early guess as to who's going to win, it'll probably be Shane Van Gisbergen. I think he was well on his way to another victory last year before Chase Briscoe slid into him and took him out of the event. But I think that there will be some strong contenders, especially as the playoff grid continues to shrink in available spaces. I think you'll see guys like Tyler Reddick really make a charge, especially considering he probably left one on the table last year with Alex Bowman's win. But yeah, I mean, I think we'll get an exciting event regardless, but I just really hope it's dry. And I really appreciate you guys having me on tonight. And I hope that you all that are tuned in tonight will join us for a grid pre-race whenever we do that coming up this weekend.
I had to change my microphones there because the one ran out. Thank you very much, Tanner, as well, for coming on, and do tune in as well and check out as well at Pit Box Press, because it is fantastic what they've got over there as well. Thank you, Tanner, as well, and have a good rest of your night after a long day at work.
Indeed. And again, thanks for having me. And yes, definitely check out pitboxpress.com. We've got some great stuff coming up over there, especially this big project we're working on that I'm going to keep calling a big project until it comes out.
I look forward to it. You have to tell me about it behind the scenes as well coming up. Take care, my friend. See you soon.
Yep, you as well.
Now, moving on to our second story of the evening. According to a report from Sky in Italy, talks between four-time Formula One world champion Max Verstappen and Mercedes has intensified in the days before this weekend's British Grand Prix. Now, last weekend, during an interview with Sky Sports F1, some eyebrows were raised when George Russell admitted that talks of a new contract with Mercedes have essentially stalled. Now, since the team is continuing to have talks with Verstappen as well. Now, with Verstappen carrying the entirety of Red Bull Racing on his back with no help in the constructors and a car that is not good as the one he's driven in the past, the frustration seems to be boiling over. The latest report suggests that Verstappen is becoming more open to the idea of freeing himself from his current contract with Red Bull. However, Sky Sports News understands that Verstappen hasn't indicated that he wants to have an early exit from Red Bull or that Mercedes has approached him in an official manner. Apparently, the Mercedes board hasn't decided if it's necessary to sign Verstappen because they believe that their car might be the one to beat next year when the new regulations debut. So they won't necessarily need to sign one of the top drivers on the grid. Here's a reminder that Verstappen has an exit clause in his current Red Bull contract if he's not in the top 4 in the drivers' standings by the start of the summer break, which would allow him to leave Red Bull at the end of the 2025 season. At the moment, Verstappen is third in the points, 9 ahead of Russell and 36 ahead of Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. If Verstappen doesn't fall out of the top 4 and wants to leave Red Bull, Sky Sports is understanding that the cost will be well over 100 million to buy out Verstappen's current contract with Red Bull. The link to this article is in the video description below, and the photo taken by Mark Thompson from Getty Images. Well, Kobe, could you imagine a world where Max Verstappen becomes a Mercedes F1 driver? This is ludicrous, surely.
Well, the last time we had such a blockbuster silly season move in Formula One, I never imagined seeing Lewis Hamilton being a Ferrari F1 driver, so I guess that probably wouldn't necessarily stop Max Verstappen from being a Mercedes F1 driver. And still, this far into the season, it's still hard for me to see Lewis Hamilton in Ferrari red. It just still seems like a dream, and I'm starting to wonder if Lewis Hamilton is having buyer's remorse based on how things are going at Ferrari right now. But looking at the situation with Max Verstappen, it would definitely be an interesting move. And as you said, Josh, it wouldn't be an easy move for Verstappen at all. I know right now he's safely inside the top 4 in the standings, and although the Red Bull car has been a struggle for his teammate Yuki Tsunoda this season, who's truly in free fall right now and can't seem to find his way up the grid. Max, like you say, is carrying the team right now, and I can imagine that's really weighing on him. And then who knows how the Red Bull is going to be next year when they have the Ford power units, so a brand new partner, with Honda shifting over to Aston Martin next year. So there's going to be a lot of change going on at Red Bulls. We've heard the rumors about the turmoil behind the scenes. So a lot of moving variables are happening with the Red Bull Formula One team. So I guess it shouldn't surprise us that Max is looking to see if grass is greener on the other side. But I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but it would really, upset the dynamic that they have right now at Mercedes with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, and which driver would end up getting the boot if Verstappen comes on to Mercedes. But I guess, you have to give Mercedes credit for doing their due diligence here, and looking at Max Verstappen, because who wouldn't want to sign a 4-time Formula One world champion who has taken a car, that's extremely hard to drive and winning some races with it, getting on the podium and, doing reasonably well in a car that seemingly no other driver on this planet that can drive but him. And that's just a testament, regardless how you feel about Max Verstappen, of how great of a talent he is. He's a generational talent, that Max Verstappen. So you can't blame Mercedes, for having talks with him, and seeing could you potentially get a driver of this caliber on your team. And we're certainly going to be watching very closely on the situation with Verstappen, as we getting into the British Grand Prix race weekend coming up in a few days at Silverstone, and looking at Max's current position in the points. I can't imagine him falling out of the top 4 by the summer break. As you mentioned, there's like 83 points, maximum you can score between now and then. So Max should be safe, but who knows? I know before the show I jokingly said, what if Max completely tanks during this stretch,
Wow.
and finishes outside of the points, so he falls out of the top 4, so he can just exercise his exit clause here. But even that's unlikely. And I wonder if Mercedes is willing to pay the price for Max. Like, is Max Verstappen really worth $100 million investment? A driver who has been flirting with going to sports car racing and says that he really doesn't want to be in Formula One into his 30s because he has a desire to go race in other categories around the world. I know we will probably expect to see him in a GT3 car in one of the big events like the 24 Hours of Spa at some point. Maybe we'll see him at Le Mans, Daytona, the Nürburgring especially. There's a lot of things that Max Verstappen wants to accomplish in endurance racing that he can't do right now in Formula One. So if Verstappen were to leave Red Bull for Mercedes, I'm not sure if it would be worth a $100 million investment for a driver who may only be there short term before buying out to go to sports cars.
I agree with you, because he doesn't want to do sports cars an awful lot, and he's very much this year been testing that more. But I think the temptation to see if he can win a championship in another team might just be too much for him. It's what all the legends want to do. They want to go. We saw it with Senna at Williams. Tragically, it never happened. Schumacher with Ferrari. Hamilton moving to Mercedes. Vettel moving to Ferrari, and that never worked out. If you can win a championship with another team, it cements you as an all-time great. I think Max might just be thinking like that, but I don't believe that nothing official has been said, because I've been hearing things today about, practically it's a done deal already for Silverstone. I don't believe that there's no discussion. 100% there's discussion. There's not enough talk going on for it not to be true. Do you know what I mean? It's like if this has come from somewhere, so we know there's something going on. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere. But if Verstappen were to sign with Mercedes, the current Mercedes driver, who would be the odd man out, appears to be George Russell. Martin Brundle believes that Russell is nervous since there's no telling what could happen. Sky Sports F1 says that neither Russell nor his rookie teammate, Kimi Antonelli, has a contract for 2026, and if Verstappen is signed, Russell will be the one out the door. Now, in the event Mercedes moves on from Russell, Sky in Italy reports that he could effectively do a seat swap with Verstappen by moving over to Red Bull, or maybe find a new home in Aston Martin, the graphic courtesy there of Mercedes. Well, this Mercedes thing has come out of the blocks because I've been saying for ages that Verstappen is in talks with Aston Martin to go somewhere. So it's all sort of up in the air with so many balls juggling around. If we focus on the Mercedes part of this storyline, would it be a mistake for Mercedes to move on from its current driver lineup? And what would the addition of Verstappen mean for young Antonelli, as Verstappen does have a reputation for destroying his teammates in performance? Think back to Austria, where he was all kind to Antonelli taking him out of the race. I found that very suspicious. I don't know if the rumours of this contract is coming from that.
Yeah, given the reporting we got from Sky in Italy and seeing how uncharacteristically kind Max was at Kimi Antonelli, makes you wonder, if he wants to be nice to a future teammate there. So maybe this all connects together in quite a way here, because usually, in situations like that, you'd expect Max Verstappen to blow up and, be extremely angry at Antonelli, but he handled this in a mature manner, which I have to give Max Verstappen I have to give him credit for doing that, because that's not something you expect to see from him. But in regards to the current Mercedes driver lineup, I'll be honest, Josh. I know Max Verstappen is a generational talent. It would be amazing if Mercedes were able to sign him and all of that. But given the current driver lineup right now, and if they believe they do have the car to beat next year, I would honestly run it back with Kimi Antonelli and George Russell in 2026 and beyond. I think that they have a good lineup right now. George, he was developed by Mercedes for quite a number of years. In similar manner, have Kimi Antonelli, has been a Mercedes development driver in the past before getting promoted up to the senior team. George ended up doing, obviously very well on the Road to F1 ladder system before spending the first few years of his career developing at Williams, and then got into Mercedes, and he's done extremely well. I know George hasn't had a completely, dominant season for obvious reasons, given that Mercedes hasn't had the car to get him there. But George is doing really well with the car that's been given to him. And since Lewis Hamilton left, I think George has done a great job as the team leader, with a young rookie in Kimi Antonelli there. So I think George is doing a wonderful job right now for the team, which makes it really strange how they could potentially, effectively, give him the boot and kick him out the door. I know it was really awkward for George Russell, answering the question about the current contract situation. Obviously, I believe George has earned a new contract from Mercedes based on his on-track performances. But, this is a business. Unfortunately, some unfortunate things happen. And given how much Mercedes have invested in in Kimi Antonelli in recent years, they're obviously not going to kick out the young driver who everyone else also says is generational, probably one of the best drivers to enter F1 since Max Verstappen, believe it or not. Yeah, so you're not going to give up on Kimi Antonelli. So naturally, if you had to pick between the two, George Russell is going to be the one out, which I believe will be extremely unfortunate to him. I believe George deserves to be on the grid at Mercedes, and if he ends up, getting ousted because of Max Verstappen, it would be a huge shame for George. And I hope he would be able to find a new route in the grid. As you mentioned, Sky in Italy says that if Russell is out at Mercedes, that him and Max Verstappen would basically do a seat swap where Max goes to Mercedes and Russell goes to Red Bull. Although it would be extremely strange for me to see George Russell racing for Red Bull, I would be really surprised if that partnership ends up working. And it'll also be interesting to see what type of car Red Bull could develop for 2026. Could they actually develop a car where both drivers could actually drive it? Or is it going to be a situation where we have George Russell and whoever the second Red Bull driver is going to be, are they going to be just putting around in the back in a car that neither of them can drive? That's probably would be the worst case scenario for Red Bull, that you have a car that none of the drivers can drive. And as I said on the Rapid Show, I know Tanner said it was kind of a hot take for me. Or I said if it wasn't for Max Verstappen, we'd probably be looking at Red Bull as a backmarker team because of all the struggles Yuki Tsunoda's had, and you can't find anyone else can drive that car besides Max Verstappen. So I think if Verstappen ends up leaving, I know I've already said that the exit clause, probably unlikely given where he is in points. But if Mercedes wants to pay over $100 million for Max Verstappen, to leave Red Bull to come over to the Silver Arrows next year, I think it would not be a good thing for Red Bull at all. And also one more point on Russell. You mentioned they could potentially be going to Aston Martin if an option at Red Bull doesn't open up. I think that would certainly be an interesting move as well. But in regards to Kimi Antonelli having Max Verstappen as a teammate, I do wonder how that would affect Kimi's, his mental state in these races, because Max Verstappen, every teammate he's had, always ends up worse off after being teammates with Max Verstappen. And Kimi Antonelli is a young driver who you probably expect to win multiple Grand Prix throughout his racing career, and maybe become a multi-time world champion in the right situation, in the right car. Yeah, this is someone you want to protect and develop long term, because Kimi has potential to be a number one driver someday. And if you bring in Verstappen, if Verstappen goes out and does Verstappen things in everything he's done in Red Bull during his world championship run, like, could it potentially ruin Kimi Antonelli in this situation? So that's why I would be concerned about Antonelli being Verstappen's teammate. But all in all, I would really just bring back the exact same driver lineup of Russell and Antonelli. I think Mercedes will be better off if they did that. If Verstappen comes on board, I think that it's definitely going to send things headed in multiple directions.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm still firmly in the camp that Verstappen's going to Aston Martin. It just makes the most logical sense. And I don't know. We'll see how it goes at Silverstone. It's certainly going to be a talking point as well. And from what I hear is that it's ready to go and it'll be signed at Silverstone. But I really hope it doesn't happen, because Aston need to get through. Max and George, what a pairing. If Max and George get it at Denver, organise the funeral for about lap 4 Australia. That's probably where we're going to need to have it. Okay, sadly, no Matt this evening, which means we don't get the latest in the Grid API update. That'll be posted on our socials as well, and hopefully he might do a clip for us when he's feeling a bit better. So I'm going to hand over to Kobe for more news on the motorsport world.
Yeah, before we get to that, Josh, I want to read a comment from Nicholas here. So you believe that Daniel Suárez should drive for Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the Xfinity Series. Like, we're certainly going to be following the situation with Daniel Suárez and see where he goes next year in the NASCAR Cup Series, or even the Xfinity or the Truck Series, since I'm sure he'll have plenty of options to race somewhere in some of the top 3 series next year. And Josh, actually have quite a surprise for our viewers. Right before tonight's show, Matt White actually sent in an EPI video, so we do have it. Yeah, so we do have an EPI update. Yeah, so I'll play that for you right quick, and definitely wish Matt well as he continues to get better. So here we go.
Hello everybody, Matt White here with the latest Grid Endurance Performance Index update. Missing the show live tonight, as you can hear, very croaky and struggling with a bit of a cold. Hopefully be back in full force again next week. Let's bring you up to speed what happened in the Grid Endurance Performance Index this weekend, where we have the third of our big 3 of the 4 24-hour races in the month of June. This past weekend, it was the CrowdStrike Spa 24 hours, the third round of the GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Cup, and the third round of the Intercontinental GT Challenge. And here is the car that won the race, the GRT Lamborghini. Mirko Bortolotti, Luca Engstler and Jordan Pepper coming home after 24 hours to get Lamborghini the victory. And those 3 guys very well deserving indeed for the Grasser Racing Team. That was one of the 5 classes in action over the weekend. The second was the Gold Cup, and it was won by Verstappen.com Racing. Yes, that one. Max got knocked out at Austria, but that meant he was able to watch his car come home in the Gold Cup, piloted by Harry King, Chris Lullum and Thierry Vermeulen to get the win in the Gold category. The Walkenhorst Aston Martin was the winner in silver. Romain Leroux, Matteo Villagomez and Olivier Söderström, the winners there. Bronze Cup was won by Kessel Racing, Justin Blattner, Dennis Martial, Conrad Larson and Zachary Robichon of the IMSA paddock getting the victory in the Bronze Cup. And the Pro-Am category, which only exists within 24 hours rather than across the whole of the rest of the series, was won by the AV Racing by Car Collection team. Noah Abramczyk, Matteo Detri, Fabian Dufay, and Bo Yuang, the winners in the Pro-Am category. It wasn't the only race across the weekend. We've also had Super GT action. They were in Sepang for their first trip to the circuit in a very long time, and the Team Tom's Deloitte Toyota got the victory on Saturday. Giuliano Alesi, yes, son of Jean, and Yukio Sasahara, the victors overall and in the GT500 category. Yuto Nomura and Takeshi Kobayashi were the winners in GT300. Here's what it does to the points as we come out of that busy weekend of action over the weekend, heading into another busy one this weekend. Here's what's happened to the top 10. Still Antonio Giovinazzi at the top. Look out there at the weekend because the next round of the European Le Mans Series is in action at Imola, and that is Jamie Chadwick's chance to get closer to Antonio Giovinazzi at the top of the standings. A win wouldn't quite get her a front of Giovinazzi at the weekend, but she'd be very, very close in that second position. As you can see, Chris Lollam there towards the bottom of the top 10, one of the winners from the Gold Cup at Spa. That's not the only action over the weekend with the ELMS race. We also have the DTM at the Norris Ring, and we also have the 24H Series in action as well. Bringing the results of all of those races on the show when I'm fighting fit again next week for the Grid Endurance Performance Index update. Now time to hand to Kobe. He's got more of this week's headlines.
And before we get into those headlines, I know Matt talked about the class winners at the 24 Hours of Spa, and then the Super GT event in Malaysia. Just going to show the photos here of all the class winners right here in the 24 Hours of Spa. Right quick, here you can all see what the class winners cars looks like. Yeah, that's the end of the Spa lineup, and then you have Super GT right here. And another quick look at the EPI top 10. Still got some more endurance racing coming up this week. And as we get into July, got a lot more endurance racing yet to come. And there's the full top 50 for the one final time. And now time for some more motorsports news from around the world. After previously announcing his NASCAR Xfinity Series debut at Portland International Raceway next month in August, Repco Supercars Championship co-driver and broadcaster Jack Perkins will actually make his debut this weekend on the streets of Chicago. Perkins now has a 2-race schedule with Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series, driving the number 19 Toyota, sponsored by Shaw and Partners Financial Services. According to Perkins, he was just getting on a flight from Melbourne to Darwin for the Supercars race weekend. Then he got a message from JGR offering him the Xfinity car for Chicago, and he only had a few hours to give them a final answer. As a result, Perkins called his sponsor CEO Earl Evans and asked him to think about adding the Chicago street race to his NASCAR program, and Evans ultimately gave them the green light. Perkins said he can't believe how quickly this deal came together and thanked everyone for jumping on board to make Chicago happen. Photo courtesy of Perkins himself. And what's become a trend since the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship made LMP2 the series' annual stop to Canada, another GTP driver is doing a one-off race at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Tom Blomqvist, who drives for Meyer Shank Racing in the GTP class, will join the number 22 United Autosports LMP2 driver lineup alongside co-driver Dan Goldberg. The team's regular driver, Paul DiResta, won't be available in Canada because he'll be driving for Peugeot in the FIA World Endurance Championships Hypercar class in the 6 hours of Sao Paulo in Brazil. With IMSA's GTP class having an off weekend, LMP2 teams seem to be taking advantage of this again by putting a quick GTP driver in their LMP2 cars to increase their chances of winning overall. Blomqvist said he's grateful for the team giving him the opportunity to fill in for DiResta and believes the test session a few weeks ago was very helpful and prepared him for this race. Graphic courtesy of United Autosports. And it's similar to the deal between Flow Racing and Fox Sports that brought the Cars Tour to FS1 at North Wilkesboro Speedway during NASCAR All-Star Weekend. High Limit Sprint Car Racing will broadcast in front of a larger audience on Thursday, July 17th. The High Limit Sprint Car event, the Joker's Jackpot at Eldora Speedway, will air live on FS1 at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, with the broadcast being produced by Flow Racing. Chase Rodman and Blake Anderson will call the race in the booth, while Tony Laporta will serve as pit road reporter. During the 2-hour broadcast window, the event will feature 2 C mains, 2 B mains, and the 40-lap A main feature race that will award the winner $100,000. Series co-founder Kyle Larson said when he and brother-in-law Brad Sweet founded the Sprint Car Racing Series, their goal was always to take the sport to a new level and hopes to create new sports car fans in front of a larger audience on FS1. Graphic courtesy of High Limit Racing. RFK Racing Team President RFK Racing Team President Steve Newmark will depart the NASCAR Cup Series organization to become the new athletic director at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. UNC's current athletic director, Bubba Cunningham, signed a 2-year contract extension through July 2029 and will stay in his current role until summer 2026. Cunningham will transition into the new role of senior advisor to the chancellor and athletic director after Newmark succeeds him. In the meantime, during the transition process, Newmark will initially focus on strategies tied to revenue-driving initiatives related to the Tar Heels football and basketball programs before taking over as athletic director. And in statements right here from RFK Racing and Steve himself, RFK said that RFK Racing extends his deepest gratitude to Steve Newmark for his remarkable leadership, vision, and steadfast dedication over the past 15 years. Steve has been instrumental in shaping the culture, growth, and success of our organization, and his impact will be felt well into the future. While we are saddened to see him step away from his role as president later this summer, we fully support his decision and are grateful he will remain engaged through the transition. With Steve continued success at the University of North Carolina, we look forward to building on the strong foundation he's provided. And Newmark himself said, I've been incredibly fortunate to work alongside so many amazing people at RFK Racing over the last 15 years. It has been a true privilege to learn and represent Jack Roush and John Henry and the entire Roush and Finlay organization. I firmly believe the RFK team is on a great spot and poised for tremendous success both on and off the track in the years ahead. Now it's time for a new chapter. I'm heading back home to Chapel Hill to join one of the most respected and successful programs in college sports. I'm thrilled to officially become part of UNC Athletics and look forward to joining Tar Heel Nation, obviously strive for wins and championships across all sports in the evolving landscape of collegiate athletics. So that from Steve Newmark, departed his role as president of RFK Racing. And our last headline for the night, ARCA Menard Series regular LeVar Scott will make his NASCAR Xfinity Series debut on July 19th at Dover Motor Speedway. Scott will drive the number 45 Chevrolet for Alpha Prime Racing. With sponsorship from Foxtecca, he'll also make a second Xfinity Series start in September at Worldwide Technology Raceway Gateway. The Rev Racing ARCA driver takes a similar path as fellow Rev alum Roger Carruth, who was driving for the same team in ARCA before getting opportunities in Xfinity with Alpha Prime. Scott said that making his Xfinity debut is a huge step forward in his career. He's worked toward for a long time, and he's impressed by Alpha Prime and Foxtecca's commitment to creating real change in the sport, and he's proud to be a part of moving the culture forward. Graphics courtesy of Alpha Prime Racing. And while that's the rest of the headlines, I'm going to also do a quick update on Pick a Winner standings. Yours truly has returned to the top. I'm 1 point ahead on Matt Bro, and then Matt White is in second, followed by Tanner, and then Josh T. And also remind you all to send us your picks for Pick a Winner. While we don't have a race to pick tonight, you can feel free to drop your picks for the races we have this week. And we got the British Grand Prix and Formula One, Indy cars at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and then NASCAR is at the Chicago Street Course. So we got 3 races to pick from. If you want to get yours in early, feel free to drop it in the chat right now. And quick reminder, if you decide to go with one driver right now, before the drop of the green flag after seeing all the practice and qualifying sessions, you can change it at least once right before the green flag drops or lights go out in F1. So you can pick one driver tonight, but if you don't like it, you can always change it later on. So be sure to get involved with Pick a Winner and get your name up on our leaderboard. We're now on 2 pages, which is really exciting, and have 29 people who have participated. So we got 3 races this weekend. So if you get all 3 right, you'll instantly be in the top 20. So a lot of opportunities to get involved with our Pick a Winner game this year. And now I'm going to turn it over to Josh. Whether you do Hots and Not solo or you decide that it's time to call it a night, your call.
I'll do one hot, one not, I think, yeah, because Matt's not here tonight and this is his baby. So a hot from the weekend then. Well, it was a long one. Weird for NASCAR to have their race on a Saturday night. I think it worked really well. It was one of the best races of the year at Atlanta. It was nice to get there again this season now as the Echo Park. And it just flowed nicely. It was a lot of fun, a lot of interesting storylines, and it was, I think, one of the races of the season so far. Formula One, I think, goes in with both a hot and a not, because great racing from the 2 McLarens. I still think there should have been issues there as well with the practice that they let them race so close. It was another strategy race. But my not actually goes with MotoGP. And how still we are struggling with people saying, oh, it's MotoGP is not good, it's Ducati domination. Yes, Marquez did win both races, but we had KTM up there, we had Aprilia up there. There needs to be more eyes on MotoGP, and MotoGP's publishing team, that's my not, because we've got Julia, our own Julia Trusevich as well, who's part of the Green Network channel. She does part of the World Superbikes promotion as well, and MotoGP. She works flat out, but the promotion needs to come more from at the top. They need to give more money to the team at social media so they can push out more stuff. Because I've seen what she does, and it's fantastic. And it's such a shame that not many eyes are on it. And I can't wait for Liberty to come in and change it up, as that deal has now been given the green lights we talked about last week on the show. So yeah, there's my 2 hots and nots for the weekend as well. I'll have a proper segment again next week. So taking a look at our upcoming schedule, stay tuned for Grid Live pre-race, the standalone shows to preview NASCAR at Chicago, IndyCar at Mid-Ohio, and Formula One at Silverstone. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up is 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race in Chicago. Monday night, Grid Live encore at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be recapping the Xfinity race in Chicago, Indy NXT, and Mid-Ohio, and plus Formula 2 and Formula 3 from Silverstone as well. Please do continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for helping us reach the 1,600 subscribers. Now inching closer to our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications so you'll always know when we go on the air, and follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Rochelle, Robin, David, and Matthew to invest each month in the Grid Network, and we encourage you to keep we encourage you to join these fine folks, help us keep us on the air, and once we hit $500 per month, we can afford to send our team to the track more often and continue to grow our media out there. The link to that is in the video description below. You think of the amount of times I say that, I'll get it right, but my eyes went a bit funny. If you want to make a one-time donation, you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want, and consider buying a specific on-air personality called coffee, and they'll thank you on the air. Yeah, and that's pretty much what 3 days of Wimbledon and then 3 days of motorsport action will do to you. And we've still got another 9 days left of the Wimbledon action. My brain is going to be fried coming through in a couple of weeks' time. For Gabby Lambeth and Tanner Smith from Pitbox Press, I'm Joshua Birch from JB Motorsports. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Good night.